Hello and welcome to the Winners Underway Show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I am a serial entrepreneur, the president of the Entrepreneurs Organization here in West Michigan, and I help a lot of companies scale up with Bloom Growth Coaching. And I have been on stages all over the world, 17 countries. Have a book called Leading Winning Teams, published by Wiley. And of course, most people know me because I spent over 12 years and coached in 3 World Series in Major League Baseball. And today on the Winners Find a Way show, I have my friend Joe Runge from Omaha, Nebraska, both a lawyer and scientist. Joe, how you doing, buddy?
Super duper Trent, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. You do not see these titles a lot together, right? Lawyer and scientist, right? Like this
I know,
is
man. Pick
this
a
is
lane,
it's
right?
almost like counterintuitive, right?
Yeah, no, I think so. It was very much a difficult education at the time. I did a lot of that together, and you're right. It very much felt like I was pulling on both ends of the chain a long time. So
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. I like the contradicting professions because it really opens the mind, right? Like, you're
sure.
forced to say I cannot just think with this way. Like this is it. And so I really love that. And of course, a lot of the research, the analysis, some of that must really serve you on both sides.
Yeah, I think fundamentally they're all about answering questions, and they're different tool sets to answer those questions. And so when you kind of are able to resolve the paradox, you're left with this really compelling, set of tools to try to identify. The sort of lawyer scientist career paths actually pretty common amongst patent lawyers, which is the work that I principally do. There's a lot of patent lawyers that have PhDs, for example, that are
Yeah.
kind of specialists in their field, and they spend a lot of time, writing patents about fabulously complicated inventions. I'm not really like that. I'm much more a general purpose tool. I'm a not quite a Swiss Army knife, but maybe I'm one of those screwdrivers that has lots of the little attachments that are in it. And so
Nice.
that's been really fun for me from a career point of view, is not being a specialist, being a generalist.
Yeah. Yeah, creating some of that diversity in your work and like opening that up. I think that's really important. It's hard. I would have a very challenging time if people know my background, right? Like of doing one thing. In fact, I've done so many different things with different companies and
Right.
started them. It's bizarre. And so as we get into that, I'm this is my great value is I love that I get to coach these companies to grow and I'm industry agnostic. So one day I'm working with an accounting firm, the next day I'm working with a specialist in the trades, and like it's just all sorts of different businesses and ways people make money. And yet the business system actually has a pretty fundamental and foundational way to grow, and we set it up, and the industry doesn't matter so much. So it's pretty good. As we got connected because of TEDx.
Yep.
And Joe does a lot of work in TEDx promotion. He does a lot of work on the background. I did a TEDx talk with Ethan King and a couple other folks out of St. George, Utah, a couple years ago. And on the Winners Find a Way show, we're always talking, and we're always talking about winning. That TEDx is called the Pain Exchange, right? All about the
Yep.
pain of discipline or versus the pain of regret, and that we're
Yep.
going to have pain, right? And so now let's talk a little bit about you before we get into that. Omaha,
Sure.
Nebraska kid, you're in Omaha now. You're at
Sure
university,
am.
doing some work. You're at the uni today, and go Cornhuskers. And
That's right.
yeah, and then you know, college athlete, got a little time on the cross country team over at Creighton, so that's kind of a
Yep.
cool. You got 2 kids, boys, right?
Boys, yeah, yeah. Two
Yeah,
kids,
yeah.
two burgeoning athletes. I've been really happy. We actually hit the gym all together, usually once a
Fun.
week. That's been a lot of fun to be able to
Yeah,
do. It's certainly trying to keep me young, at least slowing
yeah,
my inevitable aging.
yeah. That's right. So that's cool. So it's just gonna get more and more from here. We talked a little bit off air about that time where your kids get really good at something and start beating you. Like
Yeah.
I had this pretty early. I could beat my kids in a lot of stuff still, right? But like, I am getting older, and while they're getting older, they seem to be getting bigger, stronger, faster. And
Yeah.
I still manage them on the pickleball court, and that's probably just because of my, background in tennis and long term, there. But hockey, I mean, they surpassed me before they were 12 or 13 years old. Like they were way better
Wow.
than me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. They're also better at snowboarding than I am. All of them went surpassed me on that pretty fast too. So it's always fun as the kids grow up and get bigger and better and stronger. And I think there's a confidence thing, man. I remember the first time I beat my dad in one-on-one, and I was like, dang, man, I'm kind of a big deal, man. I beat dad in one-on-one.
No, I totally understand what you say there. Weirdly, I think for me, that confidence came not from athletics, but from chess. So
Mm.
my oldest is on his way to becoming an Eagle Scout, and which is something I never did. And for years, ever since he's been a kid, I've never taken it easy on him playing chess. And so I went to visit him at camp, and for those who don't know, chess is a big deal at most scout camps, I figure, but for my troop, my kids' troop specifically. And he did not just destroy me in chess; he destroyed me in front of all of his friends. And it was
Oh,
he's a very stoic kid, but he just lit up. He was so happy to just,
yeah.
eviscerate his old, and like exactly what you said. I think that gave him such a sense of confidence because, I came to where he was at and, was very proud of what he was accomplishing. And then ceremonially, he just took me apart. I think it was like 10 moves at the most before I was like, double checkmate
Wow.
somehow. So I think that like, exactly what you're saying is there's something, a little sad about that, but also something very relieving, like to a part where it's like, okay, that part of my life is kind of over now, and I held it for a long time, and I got something for it, right? I got this kid who, got this great memory and now has this great sense of confidence in his judgment, and that's really cool.
Yeah. And you are now super involved in this next level of like entrepreneur, right? The entrepreneurs at the
Yeah.
university and the startup phase. And I sent you a copy of the book Flourish, right? Which is all like
Yep.
the playbook for scaling a company and what we do as growth coaches and take people through. And we always talk about that. Like there's a real recipe for building a good company. And
Yeah.
I see so many people who don't want to follow it. And one of the things that most people don't know about you, Joe, is you are a foodie, man. Like you have this food expertise you want to bring in. And I hope you'll appreciate this because this is like someone saying, hey, I really want to run a good company. I'm going to follow the recipe for these chocolate chips, but I'm not going to use eggs and I'm not going to use any chocolate chips. And you're like, I don't know how good these chocolate chips are going to be, bro. Like these things,
Well,
these cookies are not going to be great right now because you're skipping two serious ingredients. But like, you know what? I don't like that part. I like the beating part. I like to add the flour and the sugar part's good. And I'm like, yeah, but you said you were going to make chocolate chip cookies. And they're like, yeah, but you're not going to put any chocolate chips in.
yeah, no, I can really relate from like an entrepreneurial coaching point of view. Before I ever thought I would get involved in startups, back when I still thought I wanted to be a scientist, I worked a lot of night jobs, waiting tables at restaurants. One of
Oh,
the things about
yeah.
Omaha that's really cool is, Omaha is very much a restaurant town. A lot of great restaurants in this
Yes.
community, and I worked at this really great restaurant that had brilliant food that died. It just failed, and the owners tried everything that they could to make it work, and it just didn't. And looking back now, as someone who has been through, a lot of business training, you can understand why. The menu was too big. The marketing was all wrong. It was trying to be everything to everyone. They had the
Yeah.
wrong kind of regulars. That was a huge factor that I kind of
Yeah.
learned about later on. And it was sad because these were artists who really understood what made something delicious.
Yeah.
But that's not enough, right? You have to make something delicious and then sell it at a profit. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're not a business. You're an art project. And I think that watching that restaurant fail in my early 20s and really being in love with it, right? Like seeing this thing die made such an influence on me in a way I didn't really expect because from a scientific point of view, right, you get a scientist who's an NIH funded researcher and they have such a passion that this particular set of experiments is going to lead to a cure for a disease. Or you have a clinician who is just really a light that the way that they're doing a medical procedure is wrong and they want to have a new device that goes with it. That's great. That passion is enormous. They can write wonderful grants and do amazing research, but that's not the same set of skills you necessarily need in order to be able to convert that into a business. So just as you have to coach to scale to grow, a lot of what we have to do is to try to build the team because it's a pretty rare unicorn that can do both the business side and the technical side. I think that a lot of the founding myths that come out of Silicon Valley have been tremendously destructive for how we view entrepreneurship because
Mhm.
you get some one quantum individual who can code the application and screw over the investors and win in the end, when in reality all the best companies I've seen and the projects that have been most successful from my institute have really largely come from these diverse teams of people where you have respect amongst them. And one of the things that I have been really stricken by your coaching is a lot of those same approaches for athletics or for scaling companies. It's all embedded from the beginning, and on some fundamental level of abstraction, it's an organization that solves a problem. And if they have the relationships and the capability to do it, you're really setting yourself up for success from the beginning.
Yeah, and I know you're running through leading winning teams right now. Joe's an audio man, so he's listening to the audiobook, which I love. And man, when you have like the top talented people, these are the 1% of the one percenters, right? The most talented. Like you have to check your ego at the door. Like everybody
Very
else
true.
is good, and it's like, oh, Trent's had really good coaching and probably the best in his area, and he's got a bunch of experience. But then so did Joe from his area. So did, Juan from his area. And so did, now you got all the Japanese players coming in from their area. So it's like, it's very diverse. It's very different on the background. And yet we do have a common goal and everybody needs to check their stuff at the door. Now, I am not saying that teams don't have ego on them. I'm not saying there's not a level of confidence because the best in the world have confidence. That's what they have. What we're always bridging and butting up against is arrogance, right? We push that
Right.
confidence to that highest level. And a lot of people will see that and not recognize the confidence. I'll be like, oh, you know what, Joe? So and so is just arrogant. And you and I will go, just really probably confident, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a difference, and not everybody always sees that. But you got to spend some time in winning teams to understand the difference between the two. And it can get gray in a hurry, if that's fair.
I completely agree with you on that. And I think it differs so much from people's perspectives, right? Like, one of the things I spend a lot of time thinking about from a leadership point of view is having a real appreciation for how people react to each other.
Yeah.
We all come freighted with our own experiences and biases. And on some level, we all need to transcend that, right? Like, I need to get over whatever, thing that happened to me that I am using that in biasing a relationship on a
Yeah.
team, right? There are team members that I work with that, are very easy for me to work with, and some that are less easy for me to work with. And I think much like you're talking about with athletics, right? You get a very, very small number of people who are able to do something. That's something very similar in science, like international science, that the type of which happens at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. There's only like 20 people sometimes in the world who are
Yeah.
able to converse on a topic or to do a procedure or even have access to the facilities. That's more and more becoming such a huge factor in the ability to answer questions. Like, do you have the right computing facility or the right fabulously complicated microscope or the right, trained staff that are able to process a specimen and then actually turn it into data? And you're absolutely right that arrogance and confidence and ego, a lot of it matters from your own perspective and what you're able to deal with. And it's given me as someone who probably in my youth didn't have much of an opinion on leadership, just because I hadn't been in an environment where I felt I had had leadership that had transcended that, right? That had taken those people with those egos and really tried to get everyone to work on the team in the best way possible. It's really opened my eyes to the extent to which leadership plays that role to get all of those incredibly talented individuals to get over their egos, to really be able to see it and to really be able to play on a team.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me because you brought up something really powerful. We talk a lot about this on Winners Find a Way, is that self-awareness is a big deal.
Yeah,
And people are often very unaware of their biases, of their
yeah,
prejudices, of their mood that they bring into meetings, of all these traits that are happening. And it's like, man, you have to build some awareness around that. And it goes, I always love when I hear like, I don't have any prejudices. I'm not a prejudiced person. I'm like, listen, man, like you're crazy. Like we all have prejudices. Like we all have things we've grown up with, we've learned, it doesn't matter. The environment we in, experiences we've had, we create judgment around everything, right? So it's wild to see it. And when you see someone who's unaware and not always willing to lean into that side of things. They tend to slow teams. They tend to be the folks who bottleneck activity and growth and productivity. Some of those big iddies, right? And then all of a sudden, we have a lot of issues. We don't have self-awareness. We lose reliability in our data. We lose reliability in reactions from people, and it creates a lot of tension and turmoil, and often what we call drama on teams that you don't need. And it all comes back to just a lack of self-awareness around it. And it's not one of these right or wrong. Like, you know what,
no,
Joe, you're wrong to be prejudiced about that. Like it's not right or wrong. It just is. And so it's just like creating that. Hey, I gotta know that I could have a blind spot around that. And I gotta be open to other people's experiences. And economically is a big one on leadership teams where you have people who grew up with nothing, right? Like they are
yeah,
motivated by, the conservative dollar. Like I'm never going to be broke again. I know what it
yeah,
means to go hungry, like, and they are going to fight, kick, scream because this is something they are unwilling. This is a non-negotiable for them. And then you've got other people who've grown up with affluence. Like, what do you mean? We'll just call the driver. What do you mean? Like, a driver? What are you talking about? I've never had a driver in my life, like, and it's just a very different mix. And so and it's great, by the way. It's great for teams because
yeah.
we got to mix that perspective up for everybody and find the commonality and all, right? So let's talk a little bit about winners find a way, right? Winners, when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. Like I love that quote from the 4 disciplines of execution. I mean, you are sitting in a hotbed of like the winner. We talked a little bit about this offline too. Like you go by Warren Buffett's house every day on the way to work, and you're the
I do.
guy who's starting up this, the entrepreneur startup of the world. And here's this guy who's just created maybe the single most valuable portfolio of investing in companies. It's just he's not investing in startups, right? Like so he's
Yeah,
investing in only Fortune 1000s, and like there won't be a lot of risk there for him. Yet he's one of the most successful in the world at it. And what a dynamic of things that just go on every day around Lincoln and Omaha, right? It's just wild with the school.
well, and I think that a big part of it too is the innovation economy is romanticized so much, right? There are movies
Yeah.
about startups and TV shows,
Oh yeah.
and the reality of it is not sexy at all. I mean, it's the work of getting your first 10 customers, and your first 100, then your first 1,000. It's getting angel investors. It's so much rejection, and I think for me, one of the things that really stuck with me about winners finding a way to win in the face of data that shows they're losing is, there's not a lot of places that have figured out how to do startups well. And so I have really enjoyed building the startup community in Omaha because it's different than anywhere else. That we can't simply take the playbook, from San Francisco or from Boston or even a place like Minneapolis or Austin. They're all their own unique places, and so when I look at the data that shows the challenge, not necessarily losing, but how, difficult it's going to be to do it here, those are all opportunities to find a new way. And that's one thing that I've been really interested in doing. We've been very fortunate to get not just support from the state. I run an institute, the Unitech Institute, which I co-founded with my supervisor, Dr. Rodney Markin. But we also do a lot of work on that front that focuses on getting external funds to build it. We've won a lot of grants. We've built a lot of programs that are different than the way people ordinarily do it. I think that there's this your really good advice you give in your book to find someone who's done it and to believe and listen to their advice. I think the problem that you can take that too far and think that I have to do it the way they did it. In
Yeah.
reality, you have to learn from them, right? What was the thing that they did that allowed them to build the programs, that allowed them to get the investors or launch those companies? When in reality, we can't use those same pieces. We have to understand them in the abstract. We have to figure out who our peers are. I don't spend time thinking about, the hotbeds of startup invention or startup formation. I look at communities that are two steps ahead of us on the road, right? If you look at central Ohio, right? Ohio has done amazing work by reinvesting a lot of their funds into innovative companies, and they've done it in some very clever ways. And we have a startup company called Empower Health. Their new CEO is actually out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I have been just really floored by how much I've learned from Trent, the new CEO. And he has done a lot of great work in Cincinnati, Ohio. And the programs that they've built out, the way that they've built an investment ecosystem, the way that they've built a lot of social organizations. I know that you're involved with entrepreneurial mentoring and the power that those types of organizations can really have. And, one of the things that originally drew me to your TEDx was that fundamental question about investing in the discipline to improve something, in the long run. My mentor has a very similar statement, which is all his overnight successes took 10 years. And I
Yeah.
think that's because, people think that you put in the work and then you get the result. And in reality, you put in the work and you get a step towards the result. And that's one thing that I learned in science and in law and athletics, that it is showing up and doing the work day by day that builds those big goals.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's exactly right, man. And people, I love, not a huge Gates fan, but I do love the quote. Like, we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in
Yeah,
10.
that's
And,
very true.
and if we start getting down to the days, right, like, it's very important. And, part of that discipline I like to do in the growth coaching side is, a lot of people want to make a lot of significant movement, 100% gain year over year over a 3-year period. They want to maximize the gain on their company and position it for a sale. And so, as you look at people that want to do that, like, hey, 36 months is 12 quarters. Like,
Yeah,
how fast these 90-day deals are going to go. And I'm like, you're going to want to do this and you got to go 12-0 to get your win here. This is what you're going to have
yeah,
to do. You're going to have to win every 90-day game and you're going to have to get everything done inside that. And so it really breaks down to, what am I doing today to win this next 90 days? And so, like, you're going to go to work like 68 days or 74 days or something like that inside the 90. And it's like, you have to make those days count or you will not win. You won't
yeah,
win. And so people who, always, I grow concerned when I have teams that, like, you know, call in a day. They just like, no big deal to blow it off. You know what? Let's just close down Friday and call it in. And I'm like, my gosh, you guys have a ton to accomplish. And if you're so far ahead, like, great. I love that. And I also love the idea of, like, we're gonna kick butt so hard in 4 10s and work Monday through Thursday. We are taking Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. Like, I love that. If you can be an efficient machine, man, I work really well under that, guys, right? I am a grid. I'm a great Parkinson's law guy, right? Like, it just swells with urgency, and like, I'll kill it to get those 3 days. But I just see people who don't have their eye on the prize. They come to every work every day, not really focused on what they need to do, and they're kind of amoebas, they just kind of bounce around, and they're just kind of moving around and floating and changing shape. And you're like, man, productivity will not be high under this direction. And it to me, coming from the pro athlete world, right? That pain exchange it's like, you're gonna have pain, right? You are
Right.
just, we're not immune to it, right? And so it's that, man, do you choose the pain of discipline, which is an acute, immediate, in a moment pain that doesn't last very long? And I've had so many athletes who've had to go through the hill running. I mean, you were a cross country
Yeah.
guy. You know the push, right? The pushing your body to that level of puking and everything else. But like if you win, no one ever goes back and goes, man, that was so hard. I don't know if I want to train that hard. Like, said nobody ever. If you win, they don't ever want to go back and worry about the sacrifice they had to make. But the regret, that pain of regret, is so chronic, and man, it's just long standing, and I don't know anyone my age who doesn't have it, Joe.
Oh, I don't think you can avoid regret, right? I mean, in the
Right.
end, there's something fundamental and human about it. I think one of the things that really struck me about the pain exchange, and that's what kind of drew me to sort of reach out to you. One of the things that I've been doing is, I've been this dutiful university employee for a long time, and I took a lot of value in that. And I think as I've gotten older, it's really led me to kind of wonder, well, what else am I going to do with my life, right? Like, I have been locked in on, building the programs that I wanted to see, and I've been, locked in on raising my kids, and now I'm starting to see what the next phase of my life is going to look like. And I think TEDx was a big part of that. It was understanding my professional choices through a different lens, and you've been through the process. It's very intense to write that and speak it and mean it, right? And so I have put a lot of effort, principally through my LinkedIn, to start being more present on social media, start putting things out into the world that I think are neat, right? And so that led me last year to kind of start a semi-regular article feature called Red Dot Redux, which is looking back on people's TEDx talks, because like, for all the work you do, it's just gone, and I don't talk about mine very much at all. People aren't like, oh wow, tell me about your TEDx talk. And I thought
Yeah.
it'd be really great if someone did that. So I'm just going to start doing that. And I've been really surprised, in writing these articles and talking with other TEDx speakers, just how, you kind of scratch the surface and there's a lot more under it, right? And so I think what really brought me to the pain exchange is that the pain's a given, right? Like, life is pain. I've really kind of learned that. And when I think I'm avoiding the pain, man, that is when I'm just setting myself up for something terrible, right? Like, I went through a really awful divorce because I worked so hard to avoid all this pain, and it was just waiting for me, karmically.
Mm.
And you'll walk right into it like a wave or a rainstorm or something, and you just got to wait for it to be over. And what really struck me about the pain exchange was it was a sense of agency, how to handle the pain, right? It is, you can choose the pain now, or you can deal with the pain later, right? It's like almost like finance, right? It's like, pay down your credit card or pay the credit card with interest. And I think, like, I really related to that, right? Like, of the thing of, am I going to put in the work now, or am I going to regret not doing the work later? And I don't think everything's like that, right? That is not, you can't reduce every decision to that, but you can reduce a lot of them to it. And for athletics, that certainly made sense to me. But like, just other things in my life, I think parenting is another really great example. Like, every parenting choice fundamentally comes down to, do I want to deal with this now, or do I want to deal with it later, right?
Mm.
Am I going to take the effort to tell my kids, we got to turn off the TV and you got to finish your homework, or, impose that discipline on them? Or do I want to deal with them not having the grades at the end of the semester, right? Like,
Mhm.
they're young and they are figuring things out and they need the guidance of an adult to help make those decisions. And, you can't just always be the disciplinarian on the front. You occasionally have to let things slide. And it's wisdom and judgment that sort of do that. And the pain exchange as like a framing device, and even, that's kind of the forward to your book, right? That is a very useful framework to look at a lot of different things, and that really drew me originally to your TEDx talk. I thought that was a really, especially given your background, that was a really cool way to phrase it.
How do you think that we teach people, Joe, to understand that there is no avoid, there's delay?
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't avoid the pain because I don't want that pain, and I'm not going to choose to take that on right now. So it's like, yeah, I need to work out. That's easy one, right? I
Yeah.
need to work out, but I'm gonna order, room service and bonbons, and I'm gonna sit in and watch Netflix tonight. Like, and so, like, I've avoided pain in a very short term, but the reality is I just delayed it.
Right. And I
And I
think that,
don't. How do I educate people, Joe, to that concept that you didn't avoid it?
so, I think the way that I've tried to do it with my kids, that's the things that don't work are telling them that, right? Like, you can tell your kids anything.
Yeah.
And, you've got 3 words if you're lucky before they start tuning you out, right?
Yeah.
So, I think, the first thing that's been effective is trying to model it, right? So, how do I make sure that I'm not a hypocrite when I'm saying, "Hey, you need to do your work before you sit down?" So, like, for me, it's important for me that they see me, you know, coming home, maybe taking a minute to relax, and then getting back to it so I can relax in the evening, right? Get your work done
Hmm.
and then chill out as long as you want. I think the second part is you want to really positively reinforce it when you see it. Like,
Hmm.
I think as a leader, I'm really surprised the extent to which other professionals and people who frankly are more experienced and professional than me, they really like when you mention, "Hey, you did this small thing last week and I saw it and I really want to congratulate you for it and praise you in front of the rest of the team for it." Like, that works incredibly well for a lot of people. And I think it also creates, for me, a really important culture where I have to actually pay attention to what my colleagues are doing and really kind of understand kind of how to reinforce that. I've been working a lot of side hustles for years and years. This year I started working with a great law firm out of New Jersey, or last year, I guess. It's a whole blur. A great law firm out of New Jersey called Gearhart Law. And, it's such a different place when you're another professional working with other professionals. But I've found it really helpful to frame a conversation about how do we write a patent together by saying, "Hey, I saw you did this thing, and I thought it was a really cool trick," right? Like, the way that you talked to this client, or the way that you wrote this claim, or the way that you modified this drawing, right? That was really interesting, and I really appreciated it. I think that there's almost like a mindfulness to it that sort of identifies it, and it shows that people like value, right? Like what they did, right? It shows you value what they did. So I think ultimately, if you want people to value discipline, you actually have to value the discipline that they do, right? Because it's hard and it's lonely to be an athlete in a lot of ways. You get up by yourself, you are early in the morning, no one cares that you're running, and you do it anyways, right? But like, if someone just cares a little bit, I think it makes it so much easier. And if you see someone else doing it, then you want to do it too.
Yeah. One of the things that you said there that I really appreciated was um, that we have to catch our people doing what the behaviors you want. So
Yeah.
here's my TEDx scrolling across the bottom here, and when I see that, I think it's like puppy dog training, right? We have people and we want to do them, and we do this really well with puppy dogs. Like, we don't want them to do something like go to the bathroom inside the house. So the
Right.
moment they do, and there's a very negative consequence. The moment everybody yells and there's newspapers swatting and there's like, oh my God, get out of the house, like get out of. But the moment that the puppy dog does it right, everybody runs to the dog and loves the dog and like,
Yeah.
oh, way to go, Fido, you're just amazing. And he's running around in circles, the tail is wagging, he's licking your face, and he's like, I'm gonna go crap on the lawn. I can do it again if I can get this every time that someone is
Right.
gonna give me this. I will never go to the bathroom inside the house again if everyone just celebrates me every time it happens. And so we really just catch the dog doing the behavior we want. We celebrate the snot out of it quite overtly, right?
Right.
And it's puppy dog training. Like, and as humans, we're adapting to the same treatment. Like the
Oh yeah.
encouragement, the catch, like it's great. And I think it's such a good point that you make and that you're modeling. Not only you're catching them doing well, it's hey, you can ride your kids all day long about make your room, make your bed, clean up your room, or you can walk past the room and go, man, that bed looks great, phenomenal stuff, man. I'm so glad you did that. This room is so clean. That really frees us up tonight. Maybe we should go see a movie or something. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're like, wait, like because I cleaned my room? Like, hold on, man. Like, I could do this every day. Maybe I get, pancakes for dinner. I don't know. You've done this modeling somewhat intentionally in your discipline, right? You're teaching your boys, hey, I want to make good food for you. You're in this season right now where
Right.
you literally make and deliver food for your kids to your table, not only for connection, but to give them a better sense of nutrition. And you're guarding the long-term effects. This is health and wellness because the consequence of eating McDonald's every day, we've seen it, right? We saw that documentary, like it's bad, right? And so you're giving them good food. And so you're literally, you're displaying this pain exchange. Like, yeah, hey, it takes a little while to make our food and do this and prepare this for you, but it's important. And here's the reasons why, and we're going to eat better, and you're going to grow faster and grow stronger, and you're going to be healthier because of this, because you're making good choices today, and you're the catalyst for that difference.
Well, and I think fundamentally, it goes back to choices that in the end, our brains can only force ourselves to do things so much, right? Like if I want to instill a healthy habit, I can't drag myself to the gym day after day after day. I have to find something in that that fills my bucket, or else I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it, right? And so, it could be the stupid things, right? There's the one YouTube channel I only let myself watch when I'm on the treadmill. It could be the important things, right? This is the only way that I can make it through my day without busting is if I,
Mm.
don't have an hour to step away from everything, to go exert myself, and then have that string of endorphins to deal with the stresses of the afternoon. And then I think fundamentally the part that I struggle with the most because I do have a real need for solitude, but I think that there's a certain extent to which you need a community for that.
Yeah.
And for me, I a couple of years ago really started putting a lot more effort into running with some discipline. And I work on an urban campus in the middle of Omaha, Nebraska, at the University of Nebraska Medical Center. And just right on the other side of the window here is kind of a little entertainment district that's in some classic buildings. And there's a brewery where every Thursday night a bunch of 20 somethings. It feels like they all feel so young to me now, but they all go out for running club. And I spent about a year and a half going most Thursdays and running with them, and it was a really good experience for me because I made a couple friends, and it certainly wasn't the direct social experience, but it was simply the noise we all made together, and that my feet were in part of that clumping that I needed that for a time.
Yeah.
And I don't go often anymore. My life's changed quite a bit since then, but I still feel that kind of sense of community with it, and I think that was really important for me at the time. And it was a critical part to trying to reestablish some healthier habits. And so I think those parts all together, having that reinforcement and just acknowledging how many complicated human needs we have in the things we do and finding healthy ways to fulfill them, that's really the challenge for me in aging with a modicum of success.
Tell the audience about your TEDx a little bit.
So I did a TEDx in Omaha, Nebraska, in 2024, and the theme that they did was connection, and I was really grateful for that. The talk that I really thought I wanted to give was about why inventions are so hard. You know, people think with understanding that university research produces just invaluable intellectual property, and they're not wrong, right? Like the inventors at UNMC and UNO invent some really amazing stuff, and we write really great patents for it. But the reality is that the attrition rate is just awful. There are so many great ideas that just end up dead. And so what originally was going to be a very kind of NPR public television, how it happens kind of approach, really ended up being this cathartic, angry moment for me where you kind of unpacked my journey from being frustrated that these inventions aren't finding investment to kind of understanding the community you need to build to do that successfully. That was a real interesting journey for me personally, and I was really grateful to do that with TEDx Omaha. They had a really disciplined process. We had to memorize our talks. I spent, God, months and months just listening to myself talk over and over, which I wouldn't recommend. But I think at the end of it, it really kind of opened this new professional moment for me where I really enjoyed almost the indulgent examination of the choices that I made. And I really wanted to carry that forward in something that was a little bit different. And that's kind of motivated, at least for now, a lot of social media presence. And then really it also kind of motivated me to take a little bit more seriously my professional background as a patent lawyer.
Tell everybody where they can find your TEDx Reduc. Like I love how you did this and built this, and not only for yours to stay relevant, right? But for people, like there's a bunch of people who spent a lot of time and effort bringing out their best, right? And of course,
Yeah.
TEDx is a pretty tight uh subject lines, right? You're pretty
Yeah.
tight on going deep in 5 to 10 minutes of a
Yeah.
subject that is near and dear, and you can gain a lot out of it. Like it's always interesting when I will do TEDx summaries of I'll do like chat GPT summaries of TEDx talks, and I'll get great bullet points out of that, right? I'm like, dang man,
Yeah.
like this really sums it up and in a hurry, and big takeaways and key quotes. And I really love that about how we've been able to take that data and see how it speaks to us. And where can they find that from your work?
So best thing to do is follow me on LinkedIn. I'm sure you can drop a link to that in the talk in the podcast. Um, and I'm not sure what the future of what I'm going to do with Red Dot Redux. This is really kind of the first year that we're really pushing it, or
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm saying we, that I'm really pushing it. But to your point, it's such a odd community, right? Like I remember when I did TEDx Omaha, I was there with public speakers and close-up street magicians and social justice advocates and it was wild, man. Like all of us together, and that's just Omaha.
Yeah.
So what I've really enjoyed is like I'm in this odd fellowship of TEDx speakers, and it's not small, right? There's thousands and thousands of us, and they're all fascinating, right? Like, and so if I can reach out to someone like you, who's a published author and a podcaster, and say, I saw your TEDx, I did one too. That is a foot in the door in a way that is too good to pass up. And so, what I want to try to do is to kind of build this community that really takes a moment to reflect on those TEDx talks, to really connect those to kind of those professional journeys, because that's what I ended up doing, right? Like all of this stuff is by no means unique to me. and to really try to use that to kind of have a conversation of, what does it look like looking back? Because, I can't even watch mine, right? It's so painful sometimes. Like, oh, I missed that part. Oh, that part's hard.
I don't
And
watch it
I don't,
either, right? Like
yeah,
I
exactly.
don't think I want to watch. Yeah.
Right. I watched it twice, and, and I think that was enough. And I think a big part of it too is that, most people are going to do the work to do a TEDx, they're moving on, right? They're going to go on. And I've certainly contemplated doing a second TEDx talk. That's probably not in the cards for me this year, but it's something I definitely want to do, right? Um, and so I think that the goal for now is to use this opportunity to kind of start to build out that network in that community, and just to keep the conversation going. In the end, I think TEDx has a very noble mission. It is an organization that's dedicated to sharing ideas worth spreading, and
Yeah.
every one of those talks always has a kernel of interest that kind of comes with it. And the conversations I have with the speakers are never what I thought they'd be, right? I was not expecting, because again, I didn't know much about you, right? From your talk, I was not expecting to do such a deep dive on leadership and entrepreneurship and parenting of all things. But it very much makes sense, kind of looking at the breadcrumbs backwards, how we got to this conversation. It totally makes sense. And I think it's
Yeah.
just what's really interesting about it.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things that I think TEDx has somewhat struggled, and I may be incorrect on this, is that there are thousands now, and categorically putting some boundaries around that, is like, because where do you find that data? Like, I think people have done, even, great. It took a while, but like people have done a great job of now like indexing like a Bible and saying like, hey, you want to know about stress and anxiety? Here's some
Yeah.
great quotes on that. And if you want to know about being a worrier, or if you want to know about like, what does it mean, the character, what do they say about this? Like, and now there's categorical frameworks that you can look that up and really hyper learn, right? Like that's what we really want. We want some hyper learning. And I think that's where I think TEDx is missed, is like having those categorical ties of like, this fits into this, and maybe branding it with like those some keywords, right? Even if it's like, hey,
Right.
we're only going to list 5 keywords, but these how you can search it. And if you want these things, boom, 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 here's the list of 200 that fit that category, because that would be super advantageous to me, Joe.
So I completely agree with you, but I think that's a pretty enormous challenge for an
Oh
organization like
yeah.
TEDx,
Yeah.
because the thing that makes it magical, and this is a lot of what working at a university is too, right? Like, in when I was very young, right, in at the end of the 20th century, like companies still did research for the most part, right? There were still scientists that work at drug companies, and there are still scientists that work at drug companies, but they are now very focused, right? I think we've had
Yeah.
generations and generations of efficiency, and that's great, man. I got a retirement account. I want companies to be efficient. But the downside of that is that there's less freedom, right? So if you want to be a scientist that wants to follow their arrow, then you got to do it at a university. And so the best thing about a university is often the worst thing about it, right? It is chaos. There is no dictate and structure. It's where people can go do what they want. And I love that, right? I love that, I can talk with a scientist who wants to study animals to build biomimetic robots, or is exploring this unimaginable drug pathway, or is looking at, behavioral indicia that like no one ever put together before, right? I like being involved with crazy new ideas, knowing that a lot of them are going to be flaky and pretty harebrained. And I think TEDx is similar in that I can go talk about whatever I want as long as I can get a TEDx franchisee to let me speak about it. And then as long as the talk is sort of approved by TEDx. And
Mhm.
so to me, the effort to kind of index it does make it really challenging. But the upside is you get some wild talks, and I think that's cool. And I'm willing
Yeah.
to to make that trade. And then maybe one of the things to start doing is, as I start pursuing speakers, I can try to build some of those indices. We could do a whole season of talks that are about, self-talk, right? Like one of the things, in your book that I struggle with so much is self-talk. My self-talk is toxic and negative, right? And I think that it is I wish when I was younger I'd have started working on it, because like now, especially in like middle age, it's ossified. It's like, dipped in lava, and I think when you're younger, it's something you really focus on. I think that would be a really interesting, deep dive from TEDx, right? Like what TEDx speakers have had different takes on, your own self-talk, and maybe at some point having a conversation between them. That would be really interesting.
Well, one of the quotes out of that book came from, the steeplechaser there who, set the US record at one point, also a University of Nebraska grad, I believe.
Awesome.
And she said, like, talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend. And I
God,
was
so
like,
true.
I don't do that. Like, man, I
Yeah,
say
I
things
don't
to
either.
myself that would be like, I would never say to my best friend, or else they wouldn't be my best friend anymore. They'd be like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to be your
Yeah,
best friend if you talk to me like that. And so I thought, man, that's really powerful. And, she went through it, and I really saw that as an athlete, how hard I was on myself at 19
right.
to 22. And always expecting perfection and the next thing, and working so hard to get it right, and being able to learn to celebrate the effort and the
Yeah,
work in it, and realize that, by the way, I'm playing against Joe and Joe's really good. Like, give him some credit in the fact, like,
right,
maybe it's not working out great for me because Joe's pretty good. Right. And
right,
so, we have to honor that. That's part of that sportsmanship of the game, and recognizing that everybody's doing the work. And
right.
so it was super powerful for me to really get to grasp that talk, and change things for me a lot. It really changed. I'm not going to say I'm healed, by the way, of perfection to that, because I'm challenged with it too often. But it's made a significant difference in my life for sure.
I think that, especially with, that emphasis on like a positive self-talk, right?
Yeah.
Um, it goes back to what you said about puppy training, right? Like catching yourself in the positive things that you do, not just the negative ones. And, the one caveat I think I have to the pain exchange is one of the things I learned in my very short career as a college athlete, which is you can really push that discipline, but then the discipline also has a cost. And as I've aged as a person, right, I've really started to look at what is the cost of recovery, right? Like I
Mm,
can push myself to go to the gym, you know, every day in a week, but like
yeah.
I need something to recover. And one of the things I've really learned is active recovery, right? Like weirdly, swimming is hugely like restorative to me. Like I
That's
get
right.
so much of my so like it's not always rest, but sometimes it is rest, right? Like sometimes you have
Sometimes it's
to
rest.
rest and you have to be comfortable with rest and you have to sit there doing nothing and realizing that you're doing what you need to do. And discipline, can have such a wide ranging implication that it's not just pushing yourself. It is benching yourself. It is saying you
Yeah.
have to sit down. You have to eat a healthy meal. Sometimes you have to eat an unhealthy meal, right? Like sometimes you just need to do something that brings you joy because your attitude has become so toxic because you're such a miserable bastard for pushing yourself so hard, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I learned about leadership is teaching my son how to drive because I was teaching a 14-year-old how to drive because he had a school permit and I was terrified because this is my only car, right? And like my insurance situation was complicated and like this had to work. But I realized that if I had any tell that I was scared, it screwed with his confidence, right?
Yeah.
So I had to sit there placid as a lamb, right? For him to feel confident. If I grabbed the sidebar when he turned, he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Oh God." So like I had to build this discipline to sort of bury my internal parental car owner anxiety and just not react. And then every time he made a good decision, be like, that was a good turn. Or say, you overcorrected that turn just a little bit too much. Let's go another route so we can do like five more of them so you can get the feel of it, right? It always had to be that positive. And the most important thing was I just had to not react. I just had to stay calm because that's what I wanted to do. I had to model that behavior. It's like, you're going to screw up. Driving is thousands of little decisions. Very few of them really matter all that much. And in the aggregate, you just got to get them all right. And that worked way better. And so I think really similarly, right? Like it's that notion of maintaining that discipline, but maybe being open as to what that discipline entails, because it's not always the same thing.
Yeah, that's good. And there is that discipline of knowing it is a discipline to stop, to recover, to take
Right.
a break, to rest, to sleep late, to get a recovery. Those are and that's hard because people who are doers feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not accomplishing anything. Like,
Right.
no. Recovery is a discipline too, right? It's such a big deal, man. Joe, so good to have you on today. Joe Runge here from University of Nebraska and out there in Omaha. I just love it. And you can check him on Red Dot Redo. Is that
Red
right?
Dot Redux.
The Redux.
Yep.
Yeah. And so check out that. You can obviously reach out to him on LinkedIn. Joe's active. He is a lawyer and a scientist, which is awesome.
Yep.
And yeah, he's an innovator, and he is running some entrepreneurship for the university, which is a bunch of fun to watch these young folks. For me, please reach out to me. You can find my book, Leading Winning Teams, all over, the Amazon and everything else, published by Wiley. Thank you. It's a great book, and a background and my history, as well as helping you become the best you want to be. And then, of course, if you are stuck and you're looking to grow, your organization's in a funk and you need something, please book my Calendly, get on a call with 15 minutes. I'm happy to have a chat with you. I will also send you the book Flourish, which is our playbook for growth, about how we get out of that. And that is free with you for you if you join a meeting with me. I always offer that. So for everybody, Winners Find a Way, every Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, live on LinkedIn Live, our Leadershipity YouTube channel, and of course, Facebook Live. And then our major podcast drops every Friday, and you can catch the whole thing. Often only audio on all those networks. So if you want the video, you should go to the live show on Thursday or those networks. So until next time, we will see you, and winners find a way.